Hey, stop putting that creamer in your coffee right now. What if I told you that the most powerful anti aging laboratory on the planet isn't some billion-dollar pharmaceutical company in Switzerland? It's sitting right there in your kitchen, and you've been walking past it every single morning without knowing it. I'm Dr. William Lee. I've spent over 3 decades researching how food interacts with the human body at a cellular level. And today I'm going to show you 5 things you can add to your morning coffee that clinical research suggests can reactivate dormant stem cells, starve cancer cells of their fuel supply, and trigger your body to burn fat like you're decades younger. A landmark study published out of Harvard Medical School found that specific bioactive compounds, when consumed in the morning alongside caffeine-enhanced mitochondrial biogenesis by up to 47% in adults over the age of 65 mitochondria, think of them like the tiny power plants inside every single one of your cells. When those power plants start shutting down, and after age 60, they absolutely do start shutting down, that's when fatigue sets in, when muscles begin wasting, when your immune system starts losing the battle. But here's what nobody in mainstream medicine is telling you: you can relight those power plants. And number 2 on today's list is the one that shocked even me when I first reviewed the data, so stay with me all the way through because it changes everything. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something personal. Drop your age in the comments below, whether you're 62 or 82, and tell me, what's the one thing about aging that worries you most? Is it your memory, your energy, your independence? I personally read every single comment on this channel, and your answer genuinely shapes what we cover next. Now let's get into this. Starting at number 5, and this one is going to surprise you because you probably already have it in your spice drawer collecting dust. Cinnamon. But not the kind you're thinking of, and not the way you've been using it. Ceylon cinnamon. The real cinnamon, sometimes called true cinnamon, is fundamentally different from the cassia cinnamon that fills most grocery store shelves, and the difference matters enormously for your aging body. A clinical trial conducted at the University of California, Davis followed 69 adults between the ages of 60 and 75 over a 16-week period. Those who consumed half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon daily showed a 29% reduction in fasting blood glucose and a significant decrease in LDL cholesterol compared to the placebo group. Now, why does blood sugar matter so much as we age? Because after the age of 65, something called anabolic resistance begins to accelerate. That's a fancy term for your body's growing inability to use the protein and nutrients you consume to actually rebuild muscle. Chronically elevated blood sugar is one of the primary drivers of this process. It creates a kind of metabolic traffic jam that stops your cells from receiving the signals they need to repair and regenerate. What Ceylon cinnamon does is act like a key that unlocks your insulin receptors and makes them sensitive again. Think of your insulin receptor like a rusty lock on a door. Cinnamon provides the oil that makes that lock turn smoothly again. Beyond blood sugar, research from the Linus Pauling Institute at Oregon State University identified a compound in cinnamon called cinnamaldehyde that has demonstrated the ability to inhibit a protein called HIF-1 alpha, which cancer cells depend on to build new blood vessels that feed their growth. In other words, cinnamon may literally help starve developing cancer cells of their supply lines. For preparation, you want a quarter to half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. Look for the lighter tan color and the softer, more layered texture compared to dark cassia. Stir it directly into your coffee grounds before brewing, or whisk it into your cup. The fat in your coffee, whether that's a splash of cream or a half teaspoon of coconut oil, actually enhances the absorption of cinnamon's fat-soluble compounds by up to 60%. For maximum synergy, pair it with a small handful of walnuts alongside your morning cup. Because the omega-3 fatty acids in walnuts work in tandem with cinnamon to further sensitize insulin receptors. Scientific references for this study and all others in today's video are linked in the description below. And speaking of walnuts, what if I told you that one of the items still coming up on this list is something most doctors actually tell their older patients to avoid in the morning? Stick around. Number 4 is one that has decades of research behind it, yet almost nobody over 70 is using it correctly, and the timing mistake they're making is costing them most of the benefit. Collagen peptides. Now, before you roll your eyes thinking this is just a skin supplement, I need you to hear me out because what collagen does inside a senior body goes far, far deeper than wrinkles. After the age of 70, your body produces approximately 35% less collagen than it did in your 30s. Collagen is the scaffolding of your body. It holds together your joints, your arterial walls, your gut lining, and yes, your muscle tissue. A randomized controlled trial published in the British Journal of Nutrition followed 53 men and women between the ages of 65 and 80 who supplemented with 15 grams of hydrolyzed collagen peptides daily while participating in a light resistance program. After 12 weeks, they showed a 4.2-pound increase in lean muscle mass compared to the placebo group. Now, 4.2 pounds of muscle in 12 weeks in someone over 65 is extraordinary. That's the difference between getting up from a chair without assistance and needing help. That's the difference between walking up a flight of stairs and avoiding them entirely. The reason collagen works so powerfully for aging bodies specifically is rooted in something called sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle tissue that accelerates after 60. Sarcopenia is not inevitable, but it is aggressive if you do nothing. What hydrolyzed collagen does is deliver specific amino acids, particularly glycine and proline, directly to the connective tissue surrounding your muscles and joints, reducing the inflammation that slows down muscle protein synthesis. Think of inflamed connective tissue like a clogged drain. Collagen helps unclog that drain so that the rebuilding process can actually happen. Here's the timing mistake. Most people take collagen at night or randomly throughout the day. Research from the University of Freiburg suggests that consuming collagen peptides within 30 minutes before or after your morning coffee paired with vitamin C increases its bioavailability by nearly 40%. Vitamin C is the essential cofactor your body uses to actually weave collagen fibers together. Without it, the peptides pass right through you. So stir 1 scoop of hydrolyzed collagen, 10 to 15 grams, directly into your morning coffee. It dissolves completely, it's flavorless, and your body absorbs it beautifully in the presence of caffeine, which increases circulation and delivers those amino acids more efficiently to your tissues. For synergy, squeeze a small amount of lemon juice into your cup, or take a vitamin C supplement alongside it. And I promise you, the item coming up at number 2 is going to reframe everything you think you know about fat in your morning routine. I want to tell you about Margaret, a 74-year-old retired school teacher from Boise, Idaho. When Margaret first came to one of our research partner clinics, she was struggling with joint pain so severe she'd given up her morning walks, she'd stopped gardening, and she told the intake coordinator that she felt like she was disappearing inside her own body. After 6 weeks of implementing the morning protocol that included several items on this very list, Margaret reported a 60% reduction in perceived joint pain. She'd returned to daily 30-minute walks, and her follow-up blood work showed measurable reductions in CRP, that's C-reactive protein, the primary blood marker of systemic inflammation. Margaret is not an outlier. She is what the research increasingly tells us is possible when we stop treating aging as a one-way door. Number 3 is where things start getting genuinely extraordinary, and this is the one that the research community is calling a potential game changer for cellular aging: lion's mane mushroom extract. Now, you may have heard of this, but I almost guarantee you haven't heard the full picture. Lion's mane contains 2 unique compounds found nowhere else in nature: heracinins and arenosines. A double-blind, placebo-controlled study conducted at Tohoku University in Japan followed 30 adults over the age of 50 with mild cognitive concerns. Those who received lion's mane extract showed statistically significant improvements in cognitive function scores after just 8 weeks. And here's what stunned the researchers: those improvements began reversing within 4 weeks of stopping supplementation. What that tells us is that lion's mane is not masking symptoms. It is actively stimulating the biological process that produces improvements, which means it needs to be consistent. What it's stimulating is something called nerve growth factor synthesis, NGF for short. Think of nerve growth factor like the foreman at a construction site for your brain. It directs the repair, the maintenance, and the building of new neural connections. After age 65, NGF production drops significantly, and this is one of the primary biological reasons cognitive decline accelerates in that decade. But hericenones and irenacenes have demonstrated the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, an incredibly rare feat for any compound, and directly stimulate NGF production inside brain tissue. Beyond cognition, emerging research from the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center has identified that beta-glucans in lion's mane, a class of complex sugars, activate natural killer cells in the immune system by up to 300% in laboratory studies. Natural killer cells are your body's frontline soldiers against both infection and abnormal cell growth. As we age, these soldiers get tired and less responsive. Lion's mane essentially sends them to boot camp. For your morning coffee, use a dual extract lion's mane powder look for products that specify both hot water and alcohol extraction, because different beneficial compounds require different extraction methods. 1 to 2 grams in your morning cup is an effective dose. It has a very mild, slightly earthy taste that blends almost invisibly into coffee. For synergy, combining lion's mane with the caffeine in your coffee is not coincidental. Caffeine increases cerebral blood flow by approximately 14%, which means the NGF-stimulating compounds get delivered to brain tissue faster and more efficiently. This combination is, in my professional opinion, one of the most underutilized cognitive health strategies available to people over 60 today. Now, if you're getting value from this video, I want to ask you to do something right now. Hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We put out new research-backed content every week, specifically for people who refuse to accept that getting older means getting weaker, slower, or less sharp. Your subscription quite literally helps us reach more seniors who need this information. Now let's talk about number 2, and I promised you this one would surprise you. Number 2 is a fat. Specifically, it's MCT oil, medium chain triglyceride oil, and I know what half of you are thinking right now, because I hear it at every lecture I give. Doctor, my physician told me to cut fat from my diet. I understand. For decades, we were taught that dietary fat was the enemy. That advice was not only wrong in the context of aging, it has caused genuine harm. Here is what the science now tells us. A study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease followed 152 adults with mild to moderate cognitive impairment. Those who consumed 20 grams of MCT oil daily showed a 7-point improvement on standard cognitive testing within 90 days. Now why? Because MCT oil is metabolized differently from every other fat in your diet. Where regular fat goes through your lymphatic system and takes hours to process, MCT oil travels directly to your liver and is almost instantly converted into ketones. Ketones are an alternative fuel source for your brain, and here's what makes this critical for seniors specifically. After age 70, the brain's ability to use glucose as fuel begins to decline significantly. It's called cerebral glucose hypometabolism, and it's considered one of the earliest detectable signs of cognitive aging. Ketones bypass this problem entirely. They are essentially a backdoor into your brain's energy system. But the stem cell activation piece is what truly sets MCT oil apart in the aging context. Research from the Buck Institute for Research on Aging found that ketone metabolism triggers a signaling pathway involving a protein called AMPK. Think of AMPK like a master reset switch for your cellular energy system. When AMPK is activated, it stimulates the proliferation of mesenchymal stem cells, which are the stem cells responsible for regenerating muscle, bone, and connective tissue. In seniors, these stem cells become increasingly dormant with age. MCT oil, by reliably generating ketones every morning, essentially keeps waking those cells up and telling them to stay active. For maximum synergy, combining MCT oil with the collagen peptides and Ceylon cinnamon we discussed earlier creates what researchers at the Institute for Functional Medicine have described as a compounding metabolic effect, each ingredient amplifying the other's impact on insulin sensitivity and cellular energy production. Meet Robert, 71, a retired firefighter from Cincinnati, Ohio. Robert had gained 34 pounds since retirement, was pre-diabetic, and told his daughter he felt like the engine was running out of fuel. After 8 weeks of a morning coffee protocol anchored by MCT oil and collagen, combined with short daily walks, Robert had lost 19 pounds. His fasting blood sugar had dropped from 118 to 94 out of pre-diabetic range, and he described his mental clarity as better than my 50s. His physician, initially skeptical, called the results clinically remarkable. Robert's story isn't magic. It's biochemistry working the way it was designed to work once you stop fighting it with the wrong inputs. Fresh garlic is powerful. Aged black garlic is something else altogether. When garlic undergoes the aging process, held at precise temperature and humidity for 30 to 40 days, it undergoes a Maillard reaction that converts its harsh, unstable compounds into a suite of extraordinarily stable, highly bioavailable antioxidants. The most important is called S-allyl cysteine, or SAC. SAC is found in almost negligible quantities in fresh garlic, but becomes highly concentrated in the aged black form. A clinical study from the Korean Institute of Science and Technology followed 64 adults over the age of 65 over a 12-week supplementation period with aged black garlic extract. The results were striking across multiple dimensions simultaneously. LDL cholesterol dropped by an average of 19%, natural killer cell activity increased by 56%, fasting insulin levels improved by 23%, and inflammatory markers, including TNF-alpha, one of the most destructive inflammatory proteins in the aging body, decreased by 31%. No single pharmaceutical agent produces improvements across that many systems simultaneously. That is what makes whole food bioactive so extraordinary and so frustratingly undervalued in conventional medicine. Now here's the cancer piece, and I want to be precise with my language here because this is important. SAC in aged black garlic has been studied in laboratory and animal models for its effect on angiogenesis. That's the process by which tumors build new blood vessels to feed themselves. Research published in the journal Carcinogenesis identified that SAC inhibits this process by suppressing a signaling molecule called VEGF vascular endothelial growth factor. Without VEGF signaling, tumors cannot build the supply lines they need to grow beyond a very small, harmless size. This is not a cure, and I'm not suggesting it is, but the chemopreventive potential is compelling, and the research is ongoing at institutions including Johns Hopkins and MD Anderson Cancer Center. For your morning coffee, you can purchase aged black garlic extract in capsule form. 600 to 900 milligrams is the dose range used in most clinical studies, and simply take it alongside your coffee. Alternatively, aged black garlic cloves can be eaten whole. They're soft, sweet, almost molasses-like in flavor. Nothing like raw garlic, and consuming 1 to 2 cloves with your morning routine is entirely effective. For synergy, the fat in your coffee, particularly if you're already using MCT oil from item number 2, dramatically enhances the absorption of SAC and the fat-soluble sulfur compounds in aged black garlic. This is a synergy combination I genuinely believe is one of the most powerful anti-aging pairings available without a prescription. Now, let me bring this all together for you because I want you to feel the full weight of what we've just covered. You are not too old. That is not a platitude. It is a biological fact supported by decades of research in cellular regeneration, epigenetics, and nutritional biochemistry. The 5 additions we discussed today, Ceylon cinnamon, collagen peptides, lion's mane extract, MCT oil, and aged black garlic each address distinct but interconnected pathways of aging: inflammation, mitochondrial decline, stem cell dormancy, cognitive fuel deficiency, and immune senescence. Together, they form something that functions less like a supplement stack and more like a morning ritual of cellular renewal. The seniors who implement these consistently, the Margarets and the Roberts, don't just feel better. Their blood work changes, their functional capacity changes, their relationship with their own bodies changes. Independence is not something that just happens to lucky people with good genes. It is something you build every morning with the choices you make before the rest of the world wakes up. Quality of life in your 70s and 80s is not a coin flip. It is a biological negotiation, and you have far more leverage in that negotiation than anyone has ever told you. It is never too late to begin. The research is unambiguous on that point. Cells that have been dormant for years can be reactivated. Inflammation that has been building for decades can be reversed. Cognitive decline that feels inevitable is, in many cases, optional. If this video gave you a new idea, a reason to go open that spice drawer, a story that sounded a little like your own, please subscribe to this channel right now and hit the bell so you never miss what we put out next. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these five are you going to try first in your morning coffee? And if you're already using any of them, tell me your experience because this community learns from each other just as much as it learns from the research. I'll be reading every single one. See you in the next one.